The following program was produced in Hollywood and transcribed for release at this time. If you like peanuts, you'll like Skippy. From Hollywood, Skippy, America's largest selling peanut butter, presents the finest in comedy, romance, drama. In the Skippy Hollywood Theater. Starring Victor Mature in Angelica. And now, here is the director of the Skippy Hollywood Theater, Mr. Les Mitchell.
We feel that the story we tell this week is one of the most interesting ones we've ever presented. The star of the play found it so completely absorbing that he just couldn't put it down when he first read the script. We also find the story of the star a very interesting one. One of his first screen appearances was in 1,000,000 B.C., in which he wore a caveman's costume. Returning to the stage, he appeared on Broadway with Gertrude Lawrence in Lady in the Dark, wearing a leopard skin and winning the tag, The Beautiful Hunk of Man. After a brilliant war record, he returned to the movies and showed that he had something more than just male glamour. He established himself as a real actor in My Darling Clementine, Moss Rose, in the thrilling Kiss of Death, and in Fury at Furnace Creek. It's a real pleasure to welcome to our show Mr. Victor Mature.
Thanks, Les. It's a pleasure to be welcomed here. As you said, the play you selected for me completely captivated me. And if I can give a performance in it equal to the build-up you just gave me, perhaps the audience will like it as much as I do.
Well, I know you'll turn in a good job as always, Vic, and I hope you'll return for just a minute after the final curtain for a little talk.
I certainly will, Les. Thanks.
And thank to you, Vic. Now, here is Van Dessetel.
If you've ever watched a mother pack a family picnic basket, you've probably wondered why she apparently packed enough food to keep a large restaurant running for 3 weeks. Yet, surprising enough, such picnic baskets always come home empty. And I've noticed that the one picnic pal that vanishes first is Skippy peanut butter. Skippy, for many reasons, is as popular as a sunny day in the country. For example, Skippy is fresh peanut butter, and it stays fresh, right down to the very last spoonful. It has no floating oil, no dryness or stickiness. That means you can make your Skippy sandwiches right at the picnic grounds if you wish, and none of your golden moments will be wasted stirring in messy floating oil. This way, you can keep your bread fresh in its original wrapper and save yourself the time and trouble of wrapping sandwiches individually at home. But the main reason why Skippy travels in the best-dressed picnic baskets is its flavor, the true, unaltered flavor of plump, selected, freshly roasted peanuts. So take Skippy along on your next outing, won't you? For it's really the truth. If you like peanuts, you'll like Skippy.
The Skippy Hollywood Theater presents Act One of Angelica, written by Eleanor Jansen and starring Mr. Victor Mature. The curtain is up, and here is the play.
Open up! Let me out! I said open the door or I'll break it down.
What's all this racket here? Here, Mr. Tanden, you should be in bed. You're ill, you know. Quite ill.
Just get back in bed, Mr. Tanden.
Look, where are my clothes? Someone has taken them, and I demand to get them back immediately. You have no right to keep me locked up. I'm not ill. I want my clothes and an explanation for all this.
Now, calm down, Mr. Tanden. Here, take these tablets. They'll make you sleep.
Look,
And
I
when
don't
you wake
want
up...
the tablets. I don't want to sleep. I have to be at the radio station in 20 minutes. Now get my clothes and be quick about it.
You'll have to get back in bed, Mr. Tanden.
There's no use carrying on. If you don't get back into bed like a nice fellow, we'll have to put you there.
It's all right, boys. I'm sure Mr. Tanden isn't going to give us any trouble. Are you, Mr. Tanden?
You're darn right I'm going to give you trouble. I want to know what this is all about. Who's in charge of this place? Look, I want to see him. I demand to see him.
What seems to be the matter, nurse? New patient causing trouble?
Oh, Dr. Benson, I'm glad you came. Mr. Tanden refuses to go back to bed or to take his medicine.
Doctor, look, this is preposterous. I'm being held here against my will, locked up like a dangerous criminal or a lunatic. My clothes taken away from me, and I demand an explanation, that's all.
We'll talk things over later on. Now, I suggest that you return to your bed and...
Look, I don't intend to go back to bed. I want to get up and go to my Sunday evening broadcast. Now, is that clear?
Oh, yes, quite clear. Only this is Monday and not Sunday. Your program was yesterday and a substitute took your place.
You're lying. Why, I don't know. But it was only a few hours ago that I was playing a hand of gin rummy with Uncle Robert. And that was 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon.
What day is this, nurse?
Monday, Doctor.
Oh, this is great. In another minute, you'll tell me that I can't even remember who I am.
Well, can you?
I certainly can. Allow me to introduce myself. Carl Tanden is the name. Occupation, radio singer and well-known film actor. Age, 32. My last picture, Gentleman from the South America. Netted me $100,000. I wore a beard and fought a duel. Now, is there anything else you would like to know?
Nurse, wait outside, please.
All right, Doctor.
George, Bill.
We'll be right out in the hall.
I think you can have your clothes, but first I want you to tell me what about the things that seem to have caused this mental disturbance.
Oh, I'm beginning to see the light. I suppose my uncle called you in.
Yes, he did. He seemed extremely worried about you. You have such a very vivid imagination.
So now I have a vivid imagination. Well, if I didn't have, I'd be a pretty poor artist. But what happened to me last Saturday was not a fantastic dream. It was stark reality.
Oh, here's a cigarette, a match. Now, just relax and tell me what you can remember of last week's adventure.
Well, it was about 11 o'clock last Saturday night when I sauntered down the Sunset Strip. It seemed like a very quiet night for Saturday. Maybe because it looked like it was going to rain any minute. But the crowd that usually thronged Hollywood's most glamorous section was absent. There was an occasional passing car whose headlights pierced the gathering fog. I was glad I brought my raincoat along. As I stopped to light my pipe, the blue neon sign of the Embassy Club attracted my attention. So I decided to go in and have a drink before going home.
Good evening, Mr. Tanden. You haven't been here since the place was renovated, have you? Oh, they sure did a swell job. All pink silk and gold. Oh, really ritzy. And the new orchestra has a lot of style. Oh, if I don't have to sit out here all evening. Oh, I forgot to tell you how much I enjoyed your last picture. I went with a girlfriend on my night off. But confidentially, I think you're much more handsome without a beard.
Well, Babs, just between us, I agree.
Well, have a good time.
I'll try. See you later. Say, Babs hadn't exaggerated. The inside of the embassy was magnificent. But more like a prima donna's boudoir than a nightclub with its cushioned pink satin walls and golden furniture. I chose a corner table where I'd be hidden from curious staring people, and I just ordered a small bottle of Sauterne when a beautiful blonde girl entered. She was tall, slim, and simply dressed in a long, clinging white crepe gown. She hesitated a moment at the entrance, then crossed the floor and stopped at my table.
Would you mind awfully if I shared this table with you, Mr. Tanden?
No, not at all. It's always a pleasure to share a table with a beautiful girl. Have we met before? I don't seem to recall your name.
Oh, you don't know me. I'm just one woman like 1,000 others. We're born, we live, and we die without causing much of a ripple in this great, important world.
Well, that's definitely an understatement. If I've ever heard one. Just by looking at you, I'd vouch for the fact that you're able to cause an awful lot of ripples any place you'd go.
Oh, you're just as I thought you'd be. Only better looking than on the screen. Oh, I'm so thrilled to be here, I hardly know what to say. I'm glad I came. And I'm glad I found you.
I'm awfully happy you walked up to my table. What would you drink, champagne?
Oh, thank you. I don't want a thing to eat or drink. I couldn't think of eating or drinking. I'm much too excited to be sitting opposite such a famous man.
Well, you're exaggerating greatly, but I confess I'm not immune to flattery, especially from a beautiful girl. But you must drink something. How about a glass of milk with a wee jigger of rum?
No, thank you. But if you should ask me to dance, I wouldn't refuse you. I love music and I adore dancing. Only it's been quite some time since I've been in such a place as this. Maybe I've forgotten how to dance.
That we shall see. May I escort you to the dance floor, fair senorita? whose name I still don't know.
I accept with great pleasure, senor. Your arm, please. And the name is Angelica, Senor Tanden.
I was so enchanted by her gracefulness, by her simplicity, that I didn't stop to question why this girl should have come to the embassy unescorted, especially on a Saturday night. I should have guessed right then and there that something was wrong. But I was too fascinated by the girl to think of anything but her flowing soft hair and her smiling mouth and the confident way she looked up at me, her head thrown back, her cheeks flushed with pleasure. And there was a faint perfume surrounded her in a most intoxicating manner. Her fingers trembled in mine, and I drew her close as we danced. Every now and then, a shudder passed through her body. I held her closer. Angelica, don't tell me you're cold when I'm holding you in my arms.
I think you better take me back to the table.
Well, I didn't mean to offend you, but you were shivering.
Oh, it's not that. I suddenly realized what you must be thinking of me. Coming in here alone and coming over to your table like I did. And oh, please don't shake your head. I know. My mother brought me up right. It's just me that's probably wrong, but not the way you think.
Angelica, look, please don't. Here, sit down. Now, I'll order you something whether you like it or not. Waiter. Waiter.
Yes, sir.
Bring this lady a hot toddy. That'll warm you up.
Yes, Mr. Tanden. Right away.
Everybody knows you, Mr. Tanden. You must be very happy to be so well-liked and famous.
I'm happy only because you're sitting right here beside me.
Oh, please don't make fun of me. I couldn't bear it.
I've never been more serious in my life. You know, there's something about you. I can't describe it, but I know that your bold entrance here was a pose. The real you, I think I discovered at one glance. My impression of you is that...
Why do you hesitate?
I was just trying to find the right words. I'm not a poet, as you will have noticed, so I hope you'll forgive my clumsiness.
I think you're doing remarkably well.
Thanks. Now, I know you remind me of a priceless painting by an old master of the Renaissance.
Oh, Mr. Tanden, now you're making me blush. But I must confess that I, too, am not immune to flattery. It's such a long time since anyone spoke like this to me.
Oh, come. Now, don't tell me your date book isn't filled 6 weeks in advance. Young men must clutter up your doorstep every day of the week.
Oh, I'd like to explain many things, but I'm afraid it would be difficult for you to understand. You know so little about me, Mr. Tanden.
You know, it's time you called me Carl. And I intend to know more about you very soon. We have all evening together. Tomorrow morning, I'll take you for a drive in the valley. Then we shall have dinner together in the country. The day after, I'll take you along to my studio for a rehearsal. Oh, have you ever seen a movie being made? Then on Tuesday,
stop
we'll
it, Carl, please. Don't make any plans that include me. This evening was so perfect. Remember it as such. Tomorrow things won't be the same. Carl, I'm going now, and please don't follow me. We won't see each other again. No, please don't get up. Just sit there and finish your wine. It's been wonderful. Wonderful coming here and meeting you and dancing again. I always wondered what you'd be like as a person, not as an actor. I'm not disappointed, not a bit. I...
Angelica, wait. Don't go, please. Wait. But she didn't wait. Without looking back, she rushed outside. I couldn't figure it out. Why had she acted so strangely? Had I said anything to offend her? Suddenly, I realized that once she got into a taxi, it would be impossible to find her again. The only thing I knew about her was her first name. I threw a bill on the table, grabbed my hat and coat from the astonished check girl, and rushed outside. It was pouring rain. Surely Angelica couldn't have gotten far. I asked the doorman whether a beautiful blonde woman had taken a taxi only a moment before. He shrugged his shoulders, and he'd been busy. I clenched my fist and looked up and down the glistening wet street, where occasional automobiles were streaking along the wet pavement. Angelica had gotten away. There was no doubt about it. But why? Why had she run off like this? What was the mystery about it? The more I thought about it, the more excited I grew. I knew only one thing for sure. I had to find that girl. I didn't know where to look. where to go. But I had to try. I pulled my coat collar up over the back of my neck and I started walking down the street, pursuing a strange woman I'd met only an hour before. I was suddenly afraid of losing something I had never possessed.
We'll return in just a moment with Act Two of the Skippy Hollywood Theater's presentation of Angelica, starring Victor Mature.
Last night I was browsing through the pages of that famous old story, Rip Van Winkle, which led me to imagine what I might do if I were to meet Rip Van Winkle himself today. First, I'd roll a few empty Skippy peanut butter jars down the mountainside to stir him up a bit, and the moment he awoke, I'd say, Mr. Winkle, did you know that Skippy peanut butter tastes exactly like plump, selected, freshly roasted peanuts? He'd be surprised, of course, but he might make a few gruff remarks about floating oil on peanut butter since he'd gone to sleep back in the pre-Skippy days. So I'd tell him that new, improved Skippy has no floating oil whatsoever, and that it stays fresh and sweet and easily spread to the last spoonful. By this time, he'd be wide awake, so I'd come right in with my punchline. You buy Skippy at low cost and use it without waste, since you never have to throw out a partly used jar. And I'll bet pennies to peanuts. The minute he learned he could buy Skippy at his grocer's, we'd have another Flying Dutchman. Actually, while a chat with Rip might be ripping, I'd rather be here slaving over a hot microphone telling you that you can buy Skippy at your grocer's. So enjoy Skippy soon, won't you?
The Skippy Hollywood Theater is presenting Mr. Victor Mature as Carl in Angelica.
Proceed with your story, Tanden. You managed to find the girl, or at least you imagined you did?
I imagined nothing of the sort. I found Angelica about 10 minutes after I left the embassy. I ran along the street searching for Angelica frantically. The rain began beating down more heavily, and I finally hailed a passing cab. I sat on the edge of the seat, peering through the rain-blurred windows. Suddenly I saw her, walking like in a daze, without a hat or a coat, her arms hanging limp at her side. Her lovely blonde hair hung wet and matted around her shoulder. Now she stopped and crossed the street, paying no attention to the traffic. I saw a big black limousine bearing down on her. Angelica's white evening gown fluttered against its massive wheels. I flung open the door to my taxi and dashed into the street. Angelica, darling, are you hurt? Oh, thank God nothing has happened to you. The girl lay limp and soaking wet in my arms. Her eyes closed. Her long black eyelashes soft and silky against her pale cheeks. She was so lovely. I leaned forward and kissed her.
Oh, Carl, no. Please don't. Let me go.
Let you go? Now that I've found you again? You had no business running away in the first place. Without a hat or a coat in this pouring rain, why?
I've been out in worse weather than this. Besides, it's not important what happens to me.
What's made you so bitter, Angelica? Who's hurt you?
Life in general, I suppose. And now, tell the taxi driver to stop. I'm getting out.
That's out of the question. At least until I've found out who you are.
I'm a stranger you met an hour ago in a nightclub where you went to amuse yourself.
Look, I wish you would confide in me, Angelica. You're not a stranger. Not anymore. Why, I feel as if I'd known you for all my life. You should have seen me a few minutes ago when I thought I'd lost you. I had to find you again.
Oh, if this had been years ago. But now, Carl, it's too late. We shall not meet again.
Why?
Ever.
Why? Is there a special reason? Or are you married, Angelica?
Heavens, no, I'm not married. You see, I've been secretly in love with you since I was old enough to know what love is.
One minute you say you never want to see me again. The next moment you calmly say you love me. I can't figure you out.
Don't try to. Please. Please take me into your arms and hold me very close. Oh, my dear. Now then, make the driver stop the taxi.
Oh, if I could only hold you like this forever, Angelica.
Goodbye, Carl. Think of me sometimes. Now, please, let me out.
Is this where you live?
A few blocks away.
Well, if you think I'll let you walk a few blocks in this rain, you're mistaken. Now, you give me your address.
Here it is on this card. Now, please let me get out. Please,
Pull
Carl.
over the curb, driver. I don't see any reason why you won't let me take you to the door. Okay. Have it your way. But at least take my raincoat, will you? That'll give me an excuse to come and call on you tomorrow morning.
Thank you again, Carl. Thank you for everything. Think of Angelica once in a while. And please try to understand.
Before I realized it, she had disappeared. The hem of her white evening gown flurrying through the night. In my hand, I held a small white card which read, Angelica Martin, 8716 Sunset Plaza Place. I slept poorly that night. In my mind, I kept seeing Angelica's lovely face and her fluttering soft hands, and those wonderful sad eyes. I waited impatiently for morning, and when it came, I drove to the address on the card. It was an imposing-looking house surrounded by a high fence and a well-kept garden, where a lady with auburn hair was picking an armful of flowers. She looked up when I rang the bell and then continued with her work. A butler opened the door.
Good morning, sir.
I would like to see Miss Martin, please.
You mean Mrs. Martin, I presume?
What is it, Andrew? Did the gentleman wish to speak to me?
Yes, I think so.
Won't you step inside for a moment, Mr.
Tanden's the name, Carl Tanden.
Oh, yes, of course. I thought your face was familiar. I've often seen you in the movies. You're a very fine actor. Won't you come into the drawing room and tell me what brought you to me?
I hesitated a moment before entering the luxurious house. There wasn't a trace of Angelica anywhere. Feeling uncomfortable and ill at ease, I followed the lady inside.
A cigarette? A cup of coffee, perhaps?
No, thanks. I just had my breakfast.
Sit down, Mr. Tanden. There, by the window. Now then, tell me why you came.
Well, Angelica gave me this address, and I loaned her my raincoat last night.
There must be some mistake. Nobody lives here but my husband, our butler, and the cook. Her name is Hilda.
Then I must apologize for having caused you this disturbance. Evidently, somebody played a practical joke on me. I was furious inside. Rising to my feet, I walked towards the door. When I was arrested by the sight of a painting hanging over the grand piano. Unmistakable, it was a portrait of Angelica. That's the girl. That's the girl I was out with last night. She even wore the same dress, the same locket.
That's impossible, Mr. Tanden. The girl in the picture has been dead for 5 years. She was our only child. Her death left us inconsolable.
I can well believe that, Mrs. Martin. If someone played a joke on me, it was one of poor taste. Please forgive me again for intruding.
Oh, I'm glad you came. Angelica loved your voice and your films. She never missed one of them. Poor girl, she was so full of life, so very young.
I wish I could help, Mrs. Martin, but I'm afraid it's I who am seeking assistance from you. I just must find the girl I met last night at the Embassy Club.
At the Embassy? Oh, that place bears a bitter memory for me. We had gone there to celebrate Angelica's 20th birthday when she was pulled off the curb by an automobile and killed before our eyes.
I'm sorry. It must have been a terrible shock.
It was. Yesterday she would have been 25 years old. Yesterday was her birthday, you see. I just gathered these flowers to take over to the cemetery for my daughter. Would you care to come with me?
Why, yes, I'd like to very much. I have my car outside. I'll drive you there.
I won't be a minute, Mr. Tanden. I'll just get my hat and handbag.
I was alone with that picture, upon which a full ray of sun was shining. It was so lifelike, I expected it to speak to me in that soft, husky voice which had haunted me all night long. confused, I tried to think clearly. The girl had given me this address. Upon arriving here, I found a ghost, a memory, a portrait, but not a living girl. I recall how mysterious Angelica had been. Probably, whoever the girl was, she realized that I would find out she was some sort of a fake, a little nobody posing as a great lady. But the likeness of the two girls was startling. And why had last night's adventuress used the deceased girl's name? That was in the worst possible taste. How could I trace her now?
I'm ready, Mr. Tanden.
Mrs. Morton and I walked slowly across the cemetery grounds.
This is the resting place of my child, Mr. Tanden. But what's that lying on the headstone? It looks like some sort of garment. Why, it's a...
The garment. The garment, as Mrs. Morton called it, was my raincoat.
So that's the story. Well, Mrs. Martin denies it. She says you invented the whole thing for publicity.
Thank heavens I don't have to stoop to such cheap publicity stunts.
Dr. Benson, Mrs. Martin is in the waiting room. She wishes to see you right away. She says it's urgent.
Mrs. Martin? Well, just the person I want to see. Bring her in here.
Into Mr. Tanden's room?
Yes, that's right. Tell her to come here.
If you say so, Doctor.
Oh, come in. Good evening, madam.
Good evening, Doctor. Mr. Tanden.
Mrs. Morton.
Mr. Tanden, I just heard about your being here. I came as quickly as possible. I had no idea that my testimony was so important or that it might bring distress to you. Nothing was further from my mind.
Well, the doctor here and my uncle seemed to share the same opinion. They seemed to think that I dreamt up the whole affair. That there never was an Angelica in the first place and that I'm fit for a straitjacket.
Oh, no, Dr. Benson. You must believe him. The raincoat was lying on my daughter's tombstone. I'm convinced that Angelica appeared to him to let us all know that her soul still lives. It was on the same day she was killed. There must be a deeper meaning to all this.
Then why did you deny it?
Because I'm a selfish woman, Doctor. My husband has an important position to consider. Gossip, especially this type of gossip, might hurt him.
And what made you change your attitude?
Knowing that Mr. Tanden was here in this place where he doesn't belong. And remembering that though she never knew him, Carl Tanden was loved by Angelica.
Half an hour later, I'd been released from the asylum and was walking down the street, still confused inside, my head throbbing from the sedatives they'd given me. But I was free again. Or was I? Would I ever be really free again as long as Angelica's shadow walked by my side? I wondered.
And the curtain falls on Act Two of the Skippy Hollywood Theater's presentation of Angelica, starring Mr. Victor Mature, who returns in just a moment.
Skippy peanut butter is by no means a food for children only. Grown-ups enjoy Skippy as much as do the youngsters. If they didn't, I'm sure Skippy would not be America's largest selling peanut butter as it is today. You see, Skippy not only tastes exactly like plump, selected, freshly roasted peanuts, but it never picks a fight with your digestion. Enjoy Skippy in either creamy style, blue label, or chunk style, red label, for it's the truth. If you like peanuts, you'll like Skippy. Now here is our director, Les Mitchell.
And here's our star, Mr. Victor Mature. Vic, that was a really impressive job of acting.
Thanks, Les. It was a good story.
Yes, and you did it full justice, believe me. Now, what are your plans for the near future?
Well, I just finished working in a picture on my home lot. I'm working in interference now at RKO. And then I start in C.B. DeMille's Technicolor production of Samson and Delilah.
Mm-hmm. As Samson, I suppose?
Well, that's the general idea. You know, I'm looking forward to working with Mr. DeMille. I think he's one of the greatest showmen of all times. And they've got an all-star cast lined up. And I'm also very anxious to play Samson to Hedy Lamar's Delilah. After all, how pleasant can a guy's work get?
I can see what you mean, Mr. Mature. Believe me.
Seriously, Les, Working with you has really been most pleasant. The story, the director, and the cast have all been everything an actor could wish. I'd particularly like to thank Jeanne Bates for her wonderful portrayal of a very lovely Angelica.
Thank you very much, Vic.
Have me back again, will you, Les?
We certainly will, Vic.
So long.
Thank you for a fine performance, Victor Mature.
In the cast, you heard our star, Victor Mature as Carl, Jeanne Bates as Angelica, Isabel Randolph as Mrs. Martin, Bob Bruce as Dr. Benson, Don Shelton as the butler, Eve McVeigh as the hat check girl, and Jim Hadlock as the waiter. Angelica was written by Eleanor Jansen, edited by Bud Lesser, produced and directed by Les Mitchell, who is here also as your host.
Thank you very much for turning your dial to our theater this week. Each week, a twist of that dial will give you a front row seat in our theater. We'll be on hand to welcome you with another radio play selected particularly for your favorite Hollywood stars. Our coming attractions include Billy Burke, Eddie Albert, Misha Auer, Gloria Graham, and many other fine stars. And incidentally, I'm looking forward to an acting stint myself in the very near future.
Victor Mature appeared by arrangement with 20th Century Fox, producers of That Lady in Ermine. Van Dessetel speaking for the Skippy Hollywood Theater. This program was produced in Hollywood and transcribed for release at this time.